You are listening to the Getting Lucky Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I am your host, Lucky Robert Curtis. This podcast is brought to you by WhatCulture.com, and we are powered by MMAshare.com, a global network of fans. Today, we are going to preview the upcoming UFC pay-per-view event, UFC 155 in Las Vegas, Nevada, on December 29th, this coming Saturday. And to help me analyze all of the fights on the prelims and the main card, I bring back our dear friend, the professor of pain, the master of MMA math, Marcus Mitchell. Welcome back, Mitchell.
Thank you. I'm excited about this card. It is stacked top to bottom.
It really is. It's another one of those fights that's sort of reeling from this ripple effect from UFC 151. That fight sent 3 fights off of that card, and since then every card that comes up has 12 to 13 fights on it. A fight gets canceled from that card, and it's a chain reaction effect. This card has 12 fights on it as well, benefiting now from the Melvin Guillard, Jamie Varner cancellation from the last card. So we have a huge card, huge card. Let's talk about the prelims. There is a bit of a travesty going on here, Mitchell. Let me paint a picture to you, just like Matthew McConaughey did in that movie about racism. I'm going to tell you about 2 fighters, and I'm going to leave out an important detail, and you tell me where you think they should be on the card. One fighter, 11-1, right around top 10. He's in the top 10, he's out of top 10, depending on however Sherdog feels month to month. The other fighter, by the way, fighter number 1, only loss was a decision loss to a guy now fighting for the title next month. The other guy, 14-3, ranked number 7 in the world. Should these guys lead off the prelim event on Facebook?
The records you're telling me sound extremely similar, and the storylines, to Dos Santos and Velasquez. So, and that's a heavyweight competition. But I think we're talking about a lighter weight class.
Talking about the lightest weight class.
Right. And regardless, no, it should definitely be on a main card fight, on the main card. But with all the fights that this card has, who would you replace them with?
Oh, come on.
And who are we talking about?
There's a red-headed bum on the main card who can't barely stand in the ring if not for his alcoholism. Did I say that? But the point is that this flyweight fight between John Moraga and Chris Carriazo should at least be on the public TV card, whatever. I can't remember if it's on Fuel TV or FX. It should not be on Facebook.
No, like I said, if we're talking about the heavyweights, that card's definitely top of the list. But since it's flyweight, it's not even relegated to prelims. It's Facebook prelims.
Both of these guys love to stand and bang. Moraga is a wrestler. He's an Arizona State guy who I interviewed. Check that interview out. Not to name drop or anything. But he's got silky sweet hands. And Carriazo loves his kicks. I think this is going to be an exciting fight. Who do you think wins?
Well, since you did interview Moraga, I think he'll take it, regardless of whether you interviewed him or not. I don't have to say that he will, but I don't think that Carriazo's got what it takes. He's one of those, in my opinion, and he's become a decision fighter since he's gotten to the UFC. He was kind of exciting in WC, but he's become a decision fighter. I don't think he can stand with Moraga.
Moraga has more tools in the bag. If he's getting beat on the feet, he's a much better wrestler and can win that way. And typically when you have a fighter that can win in multiple ways, you take that guy. So John Moraga, Chicano John, I'm picking you. Next fight, Max Holloway versus Leonard Garcia, the infamous split decision judge-stealing Leonard Garcia. What do you think about this fight?
I think that if Brock Lesnar were to step in the cage with Leonard Garcia, and Brock Lesnar picked him up and threw him out of the cage, killing Leonard Garcia on the railing or something, Garcia would get the split decision victory. I like watching him fight for the first, 30 seconds before he gasses. And then somehow the next 14 and a half minutes, he just, wanders around throwing out haymakers and still gets the decision. I hate that. So for that reason, and that reason only, Holloway. I want Holloway to win. I don't think he'll win because I think he'll get split decision, but I want him to win.
I think that the UFC judging, I shouldn't say UFC judging, I think that the mixed martial arts judging, because that the UFC doesn't control the judges,
right.
I think they're racist against Asians.
Oh.
Leonard Garcia has picked up split decisions versus Korean Zombie and Nam Phan. Clearly, it's racism.
Wow.
That's my defense, and I'm sticking to it.
I like that.
Thank you. I like Max Holloway. He's 6-1. His only loss was to Dustin Poirier, but he was pulled in last-minute replacement and took. I mean, literally, Dustin Poirier isn't just a prospect. He's on the verge of being a real contender. Max Holloway, super young. He's 21 years old. I think he's more dynamic. I like him better. I think he's got a better future. I think Leonard Garcia, 3-fight losing streak. He's 6-8 in the UFC, and honestly, with those split decisions, he should probably be 4-10. I don't think he belongs in the promotion.
I hope he's on his way out.
I'm with you. He's cute looking, though. He looks like he's 4 years old.
He does look like a little baby. I think another interesting thing to look at with Holloway is that he defeated Justin Lawrence in devastating fashion. And Lawrence, I thought, was one of the top prospects to come out of the Tough House in a number of seasons. So, personally, that impressed me.
Not to mention Max Holloway, 6 foot tall. That's pretty damn big for a featherweight.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go to the next fight?
Absolutely.
Phil DeFries versus Todd Duffy. Phil DeFries is a bit of an oxymoron. He's an English guy who's a submission specialist. I feel like the Mayans were right. I feel like cats and dogs are living together. Mass hysteria. What the hell is going on here?
A submission specialist? They've got a couple submission specialists, don't they?
Sass?
Yeah, the Sass angle. I believe there's another very skinny gentleman who I can't think of the name of at the moment. But you're right. I don't think he'll submit. Well, if he does submit Duffy, it's going to be by blowing on him at some point, and Duffy will just be frightened and submit. That seems to be his MO.
Todd Duffy's career peaked when he knocked out Tim Hague in 7 seconds.
Tim Hague. Here we go back to Tim Hague, the least important person.
I believe Tim's new fighter nickname is Vague. Tim Vague Hague.
You can kind of track somebody's career by what they did to Tim Hague. But Todd Duffy is the exception to that because he can't stop getting knocked out by everybody else.
Todd Duffy, after the Hague fight, he lost 2 in a row, got cut, fought against a guy named Neil Grove, won, and then he was pulled into this fight as a replacement for Mitrione, who was pulled off of this card to make up for Shane Carwin's chronic injury fatigue.
He got cut after losing once. He lost to Mike Russo and then inexplicably got cut.
You're right.
Then he went over and was just destroyed by Alistair. Didn't even put up a fight against Alistair Overeem.
By destroyed, do you mean in 19 seconds, first round?
Yeah, didn't even... I mean, it looked like the first time Overeem fainted, or flinched, really. Duffy was like, okay, I want the money now. I'm done.
I think Alistair did the peck bounce, boing, 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 and there went Duffy. So the other thing I wanted to mention to this is that Duffy, since getting beat by Alistair Overeem's pecs, fighting Neil Grove, from that fight, from Neil Grove, that's his only fight in 2 years. I honestly can't believe this is a UFC fight. No offense to Phil DeFries, but seriously. Ooh, I did want to say one more thing about DeFries.
And that is?
6'5", 235 pounds. What does that say to you, Mitchell?
That he's extremely in shape?
He should be a cruiserweight.
Ah, there it is.
See how I tie it back to how we fix MMA? This guy is a natural cruiserweight.
We're going back to previous shows. I like that.
Yes, episode 11. Ding, ding.
We can crap on Duffy all we want, but I'll be honest, I'm glad he's back. I think he should be in the UFC.
Who do you think wins?
I will say, even though I was very rude about him, I do think Duffy's going to get the victory here.
I'm going to say I don't care. Let's move on to the next fight. Michael Johnson, a tough alumni from GSP versus Koscheck, also in the Blackzilian camp versus Miles Jury. With a name like Miles, you knew he had to grow up tough. I think Johnny Cash wrote a song about him.
Fury Jury.
Yeah, Miles Fury Jury. Miles Jury is undefeated, but he's fought mostly no names, and If you look at his time, he's had 2 stints on The Ultimate Fighter. One he got out because of an injury before the show started. The other one he fought Al Iaquinta and lost. I don't think he's really as good as his record indicates. And I think Michael Johnson, and this may sound racist, but I think Michael Johnson is a smaller version of Rashad Evans.
Whoa. We're going with a lot of racism on one show.
Well, I'm just saying, I know it's weird to compare a black fighter to a black fighter, but they're both wrestlers. They both have raw stand-up that's quickly evolving. Michael Johnson just got a KO. They're both Blackzilians. They're both hyper-athletic and super quick. They both have very sexy mustache goatees.
Yeah, I agree that they are similar. However, that Rashad is leaps and bounds and above Johnson in talent. You're looking at a guy who's 12-6 and really just, I don't know. It's not like he's got, when you watch him fight, it's not like he's got a great game plan going out there. He doesn't look like he's being coached the right way. I don't think he's anywhere near as smart as Rashad Evans. And that could be because he's coming out of the Blackzilian camp, who I am against.
Who do you think wins?
I'm going to take Miles Jury here.
I'm going to go Michael Johnson, Baby Sugar.
Baby. There you go.
I'm christening him Baby Sugar.
Well, I'd like to hear you interview him next and bring that up to him.
I probably wouldn't do that. Next fight, Melvin Guillard facing Jamie Varner. These guys were originally supposed to fight on the last card. Varner got sick. The fight got canceled, quote-unquote canceled. Guillard said, I'm never fighting this guy ever again. Screw him. He's a coward. Dana White said, you fight next card. Guillard said, okay, we're fighting next card. We talked about this a little bit last time, but let's just rehash. What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, first let me say this. I'm upset that this fight is not on the main card. I think Guillard's going to take it. I think he's going to flurry on Varner, and Varner's going to go back into his downslide in his career.
What we talked about last time was that if they stay standing, Guillard will edge Varner.
Yeah.
But if it goes to the ground, Varner wins hands down.
Varner should be smart enough to take it to the ground, but I don't think he's going to be. Anybody fighting Guillard should be smart enough to do that, but I don't think Varner's going to try to do that. I think he's going to stand with him because that's what he likes to do. He is known for wanting to come and fight. I think Guillard's going to clip him. I
think this is one of those fights that takes Melvin Guillard's depressed alcoholic trainer and gives him hope.
The Suicide Watch trainer.
Exactly. We'll see a flash of hope with Melvin Guillard. He'll probably beat Jamie Varner. And the hype train will start again until it derails with another rear naked choke. I'm picking Guillard as well.
He'll beat him, I think, devastatingly, just so you are hyped about him.
He's a tease of what could be with Melvin Guillard. Next fight, Eric Perez versus Byron Bloodworth. Is that not the greatest fighter name ever, other than Byron?
Yeah.
Granted.
Take Byron out of there. Maybe go by a middle name, or do what Rampage did and just go by Rampage.
Yeah. Murder Bloodworth. How about that?
Byron the Murder Bloodworth. I like
That's right. Thank you. Eric Perez is legit. 7-fight win streak. Of course, there's a controversial armbar submission victory he got over John Albert, where John Albert supposedly verbally tapped, but then he claimed he didn't. Guess who the referee was in that?
Mazzagatti.
Nope. Crackhead Kim Winslow.
Those are my two guesses. Kim Winslow.
Apparently she had to get out of there really quickly to go meet up with Jesse Pinkman. Byron Bloodworth, coming off of a loss on his UFC debut. One thing I do want to point out, if you got the time, go Google his flying knee KO. It's rather lovely, except for the people shouting. It's like it's a handy cam in the audience. He's 6-2 overall. Last fight, 14 months ago. This is a resume builder for Eric Perez. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just another speed bump for Perez.
We now get to the last fight of the prelims, and what I think is going to be the highlight of the night. Obviously, if you like KOs and flashy stuff, go wait for the main headline. But this fight is going to be probably the most compelling fight because these fighters are the most closely matched. You've got the number 4 ranked Brad Pickett versus the number 5 ranked Eddie Weinland.
I could not express how big of a fan I am of Pickett. I love the way he fights. I love the way he pumps up the crowd when he comes out. I love the way he dresses. I imagine Tom, the other host, dresses that way on a daily basis.
I always pictured Tom in like tights with a tunic, and a hood with a long tail on it. Running around with his with his mandolin and a bow?
Nope, that's not how I picture it. Well, I guess maybe it's because I picture every Cockney Englishman addressed the way Brad Pickett dresses on his way to the fight. One thing that would throw off his whole ensemble is if you were to put a feather in his cap. That would really ruin it, so I'm glad he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
But I'm very impressed with Pickett. I know he's coming out swinging. But what's interesting about him is he's got that fantastic mix of a professional fighter where he's comfortable, very, very comfortable on the ground. I think more so than on the feet. So I'm pumped for this fight.
7 KOs, 10 submissions. Here's the thing that's really exciting about this fight. This is a bantamweight fight. Normally bantamweights, a lot of guys don't have a lot of power. But we probably have the two guys with the best power in the division.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Weinland, 19-8. With a string of KOs, even more than Brad Pickett. He stopped Jorgensen, and Jorgensen never gets stopped.
No, never. And he put him right down.
Oh, yeah.
He's also got a slam KO on his record as well, which shows you that, yeah, he's little, but he's still ridiculously strong. It's a very closely fought closely matched match, I guess.
Closely matched match. That's why you're the best color man in baseball.
Woo! Baseball.
It's a major league quote. All right, I think Brad Pickett takes this. I like the wins on his record a bit more. Ivan Minjavar, Demetrio Page, Evia Buin, 22-6 overall. I'm leaning towards Brad Pickett in a fight of the night.
Wow. Normally I would agree, but when you've got the headline fight that is going on here, I don't think Dana White's going to lean Pickett's way, or lean that fight's way. I'm going for Pickett in the fight. I'd love for it to get fight of the night. I don't think you can do that with the main event that they have.
Let's get to the main event then. We'll discuss that.
Ooh.
See how good I am at segueing?
Threatening. Okay. Okay.
First one is Chris Leben versus Derek Brunson. This is a terrible fight.
You could not be more honest about it.
No.
It really is.
Chris Leben is an alcoholic, drug-using, burnout guy who relied completely on his chin and doesn't have a chin anymore. He's been knocked out twice, I think, in his last 3 fights. He got a win over faded superstar Vanderlei Silva. I don't see why Chris Leben is even in the UFC anymore.
And on the next Lucky Rob podcast, he interviews Chris Leben.
And on the next Lucky Rob cast, all of a sudden, Lucky becomes a massive Chris Leben fan. Derek Brunson, a wrestler with power, 3-time Division II All-American. I don't think he's done pretty poorly against top competition. Although Jacare, he was thrown into the Wolves. That was way above his pay grade. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. What do you say?
Interesting about Brunson, interesting little thing about him, he fought his first 10 professional fights wearing contacts, which, as a former contact wearer, that's ridiculous. And you sort of touch your eye, and you can't wear those things. But then he found out that the Ohio State Commission does not allow you to wear contacts during a fight when he was supposed to originally fight Jacare. So he went out and he got LASIK, and when he came back, he became the first ever knockout victim for Jacare. As a LASIK patient myself, after having contacts, there's no reason that he should have been worse, but you're right, he was thrown in against Souza, way overmatched.
I don't even want to pick a winner in this fight. I
can't say anything positive about Leben.
I'll say Brunson.
I'm going to go with Leben by TKO. I think that his submission, his recent submission, was nothing but a fluke, but he still comes out and just throws that left hand. I think he's going to land it.
Well, I don't know.
I know you don't
Chris
care.
Leben should be taken out behind the barn and put out of his misery. Let's get to the next fight.
That's terrible.
I'm sorry. I think we're seeing a human train wreck, and I think fighting is facilitating his lack of treatment.
I think he's getting better. I think Ben Folks wrote a ridiculously interesting story on him on MMAJunkie.com, which you should definitely check out, where it chronicles how he is his own worst enemy, and it's difficult to be him. I don't sympathize with him or empathize at all with him, but I do enjoy. He's a Leonard Garcia that doesn't crap out like Leonard Garcia does. You can't count him out. He doesn't win by split decision.
No.
I don't know. We're different on Leben.
Good luck to you, sir. May a priest be there to perform your last rites. Next fight, a middleweight matchup between number 8 ranked Yushin Okami versus an unranked Alan Belcher. I think Alan Belcher should be ranked, personally.
I absolutely do. It's surprising to find out that he's not, the hype behind him. But if you do look at his record, it is kind of spotty with losses here and there, so that could be why.
Well, I mean, what would you rather have, 18-6 record on a 4-fight win streak, or a 27-7 record? Yushin Okami, I believe he's 1-2 in his last 3.
Yeah, I think that once you build yourself up that way, the number of fights you have, the harder it is to get knocked down off that list. Once you get on that list, you have to do, or at least as high as he was on the list, you have to do something pretty significant to get down far off it. And losing to Tim Boetsch and Anderson Silva, I don't think was big enough for him to get off that list.
His last win came over tour replacement, Buddy Roberts. Seriously, that's the guy's name, Buddy Roberts.
And I don't know who that is, so that's how important he is.
I don't like Okami's style. I think judo is a fine base, but if that's your primary weapon, I think it's incredibly boring. And I'm a guy that loves John Fitch. That's saying a lot, right?
I don't enjoy watching him fight either. I don't know what it is about him. I know that he uses his size a lot because he is huge for a middleweight. I agree. I don't like watching him fight.
Do you think Alan Belcher's momentum that really spawned off of his chess match with Toquinho has lost some excitement because of what Hector Lombard did to Toquinho?
That's exactly what I thought when I saw Lombard just dominate. I thought, well, now Belcher doesn't look so hot, because what Belcher did was, that was a tremendous match to watch. And with all the hype Toquinho had coming into the fight, that was awesome. So I think it does. I think it discredits him a little tiny bit.
You know what's also what's also really shocking? Hector Lombard, not ranked. Not in the top 10. I think if you actually count the fighters sort of in contention to be ranked, I think he's ranked 14th. That's absolutely.
Wow, and
that's ridiculous.
And you interviewed him, didn't you?
I did. Not to name drop. I interviewed him twice.
Can we talk about this about Belcher just for a second? He has easily the ugliest tattoo in all of MMA. It's disgusting. It's worse than Brock Lesnar's. I hate it.
You're talking about, what is it, Roy Orbison?
Yeah. I don't know who he paid to do it, but it looks like Belcher at one time gained like 400 pounds and then lost it, and the tattoo just got ugly and stretched out, and I don't know why it's there. He
suffers from NBA tattoo, which is where you got these millionaires, guys that are making $20 million a year, and they somehow insist on getting tattoos the quality that you'd find in a penitentiary in Kansas. One thing about Alan Belcher is he's got to be one of the most well-rounded fighters, at least in terms of his fighting credentials. He's a black belt in Taekwondo, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a black belt in kickboxing. I didn't know they gave out belts for that. He's belted in grappling. He's belted in judo. I got Belcher in this fight.
I have Belcher as well because he's violent and comfortable wherever the fight goes. Talking about his well-roundedness, he can stand and trade, but I don't think Okami's going to want to do that. I never really bet against the wrestler, but the Rufus-trained Belcher, I think he's going to take it. I think he's actually going to tap him out.
If Yushin Okami wins this fight, it'll be the worst fight on the card. That's just the truth. He'll wall install him, and it'll be an ugly decision victory.
Yeah, and that's why I'm going with Belcher. I hope that works out for me.
Let's get to one of our fan favorites, number 5 ranked Tim Boetsch, the Viking, the Barbarian. He's 4-0 as a middleweight. He got a pretty lucky break over Hector Lombard. He's a D1 wrestler. He's had 10 fights in the UFC. He's 7-3. He's facing a guy that looks like an extra in Taken 2, and that's Costa Philippou. He's a Hulk. He's a former pro boxer. He's a replacement for Weidman. Do you think he'll do well against a very large, strong Division I wrestler in Tim Boetsch?
Philippou, no, I don't think he will. Being a late replacement is just as bad for the replacement as it is for the original fighter. I don't think Philippou's got his physique is unbelievable, totally in a normal straight person way, but I don't think that's going to help him in this fight. I'm a gigantic Boetsch fan, so I could be a little bit swayed there.
Yeah, Boetsch has a massive fan following.
I can tell you why he's a huge fan favorite. If you go back when he was a late replacement fighter for against David Heath, that was his first fight in the UFC. He had 10 days to prepare for that fight. Before the fight, Goldie and Rogan were hyping him as like a nobody, just being led to slaughter to David Heath. And he comes in there and just throws Heath literally on his head. And Rogan and Goldie immediately changed their tone. I think that he's upset about the Lombard victory, and I think he's going to come out and show everybody why he deserves their attention, why he's ranked where he is. I think he's going to overwhelm Philippou.
I agree, and I want him to really overwhelm, because I think the more elite fighters you have in there, or at least guys in the next tier, makes the whole division more exciting.
I don't think he'd stand a chance against his original opponent, Weidman, though.
Next fight, Joe Lozon, unranked, versus the number 6th ranked Jim Miller. Now, these guys are very similar in style. They're both submission guys. And I actually think that they could be really good friends because they have a lot of things in common. For instance, they both submitted Melvin Guillard via rear naked choke in the first round.
Almost. Who hasn't, though?
In fact, I just did it before breakfast. Is there going to be any striking in this match?
I think that plays into Jim Miller's strength against Joe Lozon. Lozon knows he's not good at that at all. He's honest with himself, and he knows that he can only submit people. And I think Miller, with his wrestling pedigree, is going to be able to keep the fight standing. He probably could go to the ground with Joe Lozon, but why would you if you didn't have to?
I think Jim Miller is a little bit of a... You remember last time when we talked in our Cage Chat, episode 11, you said that you didn't like the hype machine. Part of it was people generating like, oh, I really hate this guy. But other parts of it was the UFC hyping fights beyond what they should be. And I think Jim Miller may be a hype creation.
Really?
His hype train was off the charts. And then he got beat by Ben Henderson at UFC Live. Then he wins one. And a title contender eliminator versus Nate Diaz at UFC on Fox, he gets beat again. I think his style of fighting, a submission guy, being that he's 5'8" as a lightweight, I don't think translates well to elite competition.
I see the point you're making there. I don't think he's a creation of the UFC hype, but I could understand why you would. I think that if you do run down the list of victories he's got, none of them are really super name fighters, and when you do run into a name fighter, there is a loss next to his name. But his only losses, though, are to Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard, and Ben Henderson.
And Nate Diaz.
And Nate Diaz. But those are, big guys, top guys in that division.
Well, that's my point. I'm not saying Jim Miller is a fraud. I'm not saying he sucks balls. I'm saying I don't think he's number 6 as he's ranked. And I think part of that is some UFC just anoints some fighters that they're going to market. And Jim Miller, to me, is not a main headline fighter.
No, I don't think he's a headline fighter because he doesn't talk the trash that UFC wants him to talk. I think that he's quiet about what he does. He goes in there and gets the job done. He fights generally 4 times a year and does nothing but win. But when he faces the 4 guys I mentioned, I don't know what happened.
Well, I think he's a really, really good journeyman. I think he's got
journeyman.
I think he's the best journeyman there is. I just don't think he's at that next level. I don't think Joe Lozon is either. I think he could probably. I honestly think this fight's a pick'em, to be honest.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think it's a pick'em at all. I think Miller wins easily, but I think Lozon would be more of a journeyman than Miller. I think Lozon's a gatekeeper with a slick, dirty sub game. But I definitely think Miller's far better than you're ranking him here.
I think one of the things that makes Lozon more of a appealing fighter to me is that he's got 10 awards for best of the night, whether they're fight of the night or sub of the night. So he's an exciting fighter. I'm
not saying he's not.
He did get a vicious head kick from Anthony Pettis. So I mean, I'm not saying his hype train is out of control. I just don't think. I don't know. Jim Miller, I don't see him matching up with any of the elite lightweights on a serious contender level.
I think that if he were to get a rematch with Nate Diaz, even though I do like Nate Diaz, I think he would fight that fight a lot better, and I think he'd take Diaz.
Well, so you're all in on Jim Miller.
I don't think he can beat Bendo. I don't know who can in that division, but other than Pettis
or Aldo.
if Aldo does come up, that would be fantastic.
That would be.
Still though, my money would be on Bendo. But I think Miller is elite, and I'm surprised to hear you say he's not.
I'm more than ready to be proven wrong in this fight against Joe Lozon.
In this fight against J-Lo, which is the dumbest nickname.
Horrible name.
I think that Jim Miller knows he's the bigger fighter. I know he's got more wrestling experience. I think Miller knows he can play the ground game, and there's no reason to go to the ground with J-Lo. I think he's going to take it easily. And I'm surprised that you disagree. Not that you disagree, but that you don't like him.
It's not that I dislike him. I just think that he's held in higher regard than his skills warrant. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I've been wrong before. Like, I was certain that the lunar landing was a fake, but what do I know?
Certain that Tim Means was going to get a UFC fight.
Why do you have to go there? Are we going to talk about Vince Pichel now, too?
No, that was awesome, though.
That was, in terms of unlucky curses, the Tim Meanses has to be at the very top. Can we talk about the main event, please?
Yeah, let's get away from that. First of all, but why would that be the co-main event, the Joe Lozon Jim Miller fight? Of all the fights on this card,
what do you think? Pickett, Weinland?
I think I'd rather see Pickett, Weinland. I'd rather see Guillard, Varner.
Yep.
I think either of those fights could serve as the co-main event to this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you've got good fighters like Boetsch and Yushin Okami and Alan Belcher, but if you want to look at just rankings and guys that are right there in title contention, Pickett, Weinland should be the co-main event.
Especially to maybe introduce those types of fighters to lesser known or to more casual fans that just are tuning in for a heavyweight title fight. Why not introduce and market your top talent in the lighter weight classes instead of relegating them to the prelims? That doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe putting them on the free TV card is their way of introducing them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Number 1, JDS, the current heavyweight champion, 15-1, versus number 2, Cain Velasquez, 10-1. His only loss coming by dramatic, instamatic knockout by JDS with, I believe, a right-hand haymaker right behind the ear.
Behind the ear, infuriating Dana White immediately.
I think Dana White literally let a little trickle of pee into his underoos that day. I think Cain Velasquez has to answer a question. And that question is, does he have a chin? It's not something that you just bring up because it's like, insulting a man's penis size when you question their chin as a fighter. But he's been rocked several times through his career. And getting clipped like he did and absolutely getting devastated, dominated by JDS, I think now he has chin questions. Is that fair?
I don't think it's proven yet. I mean, maybe there's the idea, but it's not anything for me as a fan to think that that's the question. And when you go into a fight with Dos Santos, though, who doesn't have chin problems? Who's not going in there a little afraid?
Shane Carwin, Roy Nelson.
Well, Roy Nelson is just a cut above the rest when it comes to chin.
I'm not saying they won those fights. I'm saying they didn't get put. I mean, Shane Carwin looked like Jason Voorhees, at the end of the movie after he's been hit in the head with a machete 7 times.
First of all, Cain Velasquez is not the size of a Shane Carwin. He matches up more to the size of JDS. I don't know.
There's not a big size difference, really. They weigh about the same. They're 240 cruiserweights. Their reach is the same, 77 inches. The only difference is JDS is 6'4" and Cain is 6'1".
Right. But size-wise,
weight-wise,
they match up.
They're basically the same.
Yeah. And they could both be cruiserweights.
Thank you.
So cheers. But I don't know. I don't think his chin is in question at all. I think what's interesting about these two fighters is they're mainly, this is, I guess, normal for heavyweights, but they're mainly first-round finishers. They average together about 6.5 minutes in the cage, but last time they didn't even get through a full minute. So I think this is going to be an early night for either of the two fighters.
Oh, for either?
Mm-hmm.
You think Cain can actually finish JDS quickly?
I think. Did you see what he did to Antonio Silva?
Yeah, but that's. This is a perfect time for me to bring something up. I think Cain is even more of a UFC creation than Jim Miller.
I agree there because of the Mexican-American thing.
Let me just read off their competition. All right?
Sure.
I'll read you off their victories. Here's their UFC victories. Here's Cain's. Brad Morris, Jake O'Brien, Dennis Stolnik, Chet Congo, an old Big Nog, Brock Lesnar after diverticulitis, and Bigfoot Silva. That's who he fought. Here's what JDS... And Cain came in at 2-0. Here's who JDS fought, coming in at 6-1. His first fight, Verdum, then Stefan Struve, Crow Cop, Gilbert Ivel, Gabriel Gonzaga, Roy Nelson, Shane Carwin, Cain, and Frank Mir. I'd say his resume is 10 times better than Cain's.
Oh, absolutely. He's fought a who's who of the heavyweight division. He's also got the record for the most wins in a row in the UFC in the heavyweight division. There's no question that JDS is the best. That's why he's got the belt around his waist.
In what universe is Cain Velasquez ranked higher than Alistair Overeem?
That doesn't make any sense to me. I think that comes with Overeem not fighting as often as he should and also getting popped.
If Cain wins this, it'll be by decision.
Really?
Frank Mir had a fairly great breakdown of this fight. And that was that JDS's footwork is so good that he actually doesn't have to use his sprawl so much because he gets out of positions where he could set up a single or a double, and he doesn't fight with his back on the cage because of his footwork.
Yeah, his footwork is fantastic, especially for an MMA fighter. I think he could go into pro boxing and be just fine.
Yeah, I mean he would definitely be competent. I don't, who knows how he would do against the top of them, but
yeah. If you're going off their previous competition, yes, JDS head and shoulders above Velasquez. If you look at their last fight, yeah, it's devastating for Cain. But Cain came into that last fight against Dos Santos with now all of a sudden pretty big injury. He had the shoulder injury and now he had a knee injury.
But Junior Dos Santos also had a knee injury, and that came out right after the fight, remember?
Yeah. It was the first time, I guess, though, Velasquez was coming off an injury, and to face such a huge opponent like Dos Santos, yeah, he was the champion, but I think he rebounds here. I think he rebounds, and actually, I'm picking Cain to take the championship back. I agree, though, that he is a hype train created by the UFC.
I mean, do you think Cain gets 600 words of print if he's fighting in Pride, like in 2004?
Absolutely not. No, he doesn't. There's an MMA article that came out on SureDog about Mount Rushmore of MMA.
Yeah, I read that. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I think even if you did just a Mount Rushmore on heavyweights, I don't think he even comes in the top 10 there.
But JDS now is legitimately knocking on that door.
Absolutely. I've underhyped Dos Santos since he entered the UFC. I actually thought, and this is pretty telling of my knowledge of JDS, when he fought Gilbert Evil, I bet somebody that Evil would win. So I've been underhyping Dos Santos his whole career. This is me hoping at some point I'm right. I do like Dos Santos. I think he's a great champion. I think he's an intelligent fighter, and he's unbelievable on the feet. But there's something that tells me Cain's taking this one. And I don't think it's going to go to decision.
There's two ways that this can play out. Cain wins, and then we create a triangle of awesome with JDS, Cain, and Overeem at all three. And you just alternate those guys fighting each other, and hopefully they go 50-50 with each other. So it's just like this great, dramatic, years to come, triple feud. Or JDS runs over Cain again, setting up for the titanic, once-in-a-lifetime clash between him and Overeem. And I don't think that has the legs of having three good heavyweights has. You know what I mean?
Right. I think that if it did come to that, if it came down to a triangle of fighters, I don't think Cain stands any chance whatsoever against Alistair Overeem. And I'd be interested to see how Dos Santos would fare.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know exactly how Cain would fare because I don't really know how good Overeem's takedown defense is. So you're going with Cain. I'm going to go with JDS.
I'm picking Cain by finish.
First round?
No, I'd say early second round.
I'm gonna go by a TKO. JDS TKO's Cain, and I'll say late first round just to make myself even more on the line. Late first round TKO.
Okay.
Well, actually, I'm gonna go with a Todd Duffy Tim Hague.
Wow, 7 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: Velasquez Hague, who wins that?
I think the better question is how many Hagues could Cain beat at once? I'm thinking 6 or 7.
How many could Dos Santos beat at once?
8 or 9. Can they fit in there? Can we have a bigger cage? Yeah. I'm not down on Cain. And I think people get confused when I'm critical of a fighter. I don't dislike Cain or Rashad Evans or anybody. I'm just speaking my mind. I like Cain Velasquez. I think he's good for the sport. I think he's a humble guy. I think he was a good champion. It was really exciting to watch his fight against Brock Lesnar. I just don't think he's as good as he's made out to be, at least not yet.
Yeah, I think he does have a tremendous amount of hype behind him. I agree with you on all your points. It's just something about this particular fight. Something tells me Cain's going to take it. The only downside, the only huge downside to any MMA fan if he takes it, is how much hype they will put behind him being a Mexican-American for the rest of his title reign. I cannot stand that.
That is a lucrative market, and that's an unavoidable fact of the UFC.
They'll take the money where they can get it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that is our preview of UFC 155. Be sure to check back with us after the event. We're changing things up a little bit. We're going to break up our review show into 2 different episodes. The first episode is going to be all of the prelims, about 30 minutes. The second episode is going to be just the main card. So if you're only interested in the main card, you can skip all the prelims and listen straight to that. Otherwise, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or on YouTube. Check me out on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Lucky Rob. I bid you happy holidays and a happy new year. Mitchell, would you like to say something to the people?
Just have a happy new year. Thanks for listening.
And that's it. Thanks again. See you guys.